Revenge films.
My name is Sarah. I lived with my husband, Michael, and our newborn baby, Hannah. My husband works at the company where his father is a director, so his salary is steady, and for that reason, I'm able to focus on raising my baby while being a full-time housewife. Everyone around me often said I had a good life and that they were jealous, and they all thought my life was smooth sailing. However, there is something really troubling me. My husband was always a mama's boy, but even after our daughter was born, he didn't seem interested in her at all, and he wasn't very helpful with raising her. On his day off, he would often go back to his parents' home alone, and he would never try to make time for us. Most days, I always was left alone with my daughter. Good morning. It's already past noon.
I'm exhausted from work. At least let me sleep in on my days off.
You're right. What do you want for lunch?
Once I get dressed, I'm going to go straight to my parents' place. I'm gonna stay the night there, so I don't need dinner either.
Again? But last week and the week before, you did the same thing. Why don't you stay at home sometimes?
My mom is all alone. Don't you feel bad for her?
Well then, why can't you take me and Hannah with you sometimes? You could spend some time with us too, you know?
Impossible. If Hannah is there, then I can't relax and talk to my mom, can I? Plus, my mom said that unless my dad is around, you and Hannah are a burden. So she told me not to bring you.
A burden?
Well then, I'm gonna go.
Michael thinks that his mother is more important than his daughter. And his mom also thinks that her son is cuter than her grandchild. So to the two of them, my daughter and I were simply in the way. The one person who would take my side in all of this was my father-in-law. Knowing that he was too much of a mama's boy, he often scolded my husband to take responsibility and be more thoughtful of his wife and daughter. That's why both my husband and my mother-in-law would be nice to me and my daughter whenever he was around. However, my father-in-law was living out of town on a long-term transfer assignment, so he would only be back every so often. That was perfect for Michael and his mom to do as they pleased without him. I was feeling uneasy about my life like this, when one day a typhoon came close to our region. It looks like a typhoon is coming. We should start preparing for it before it's too late.
I wonder if my mom is okay. I'm gonna go check on her.
Even though there was a major typhoon coming, my husband didn't seem worried in the slightest about me or my daughter, and he ran off to his parents' home. When he finally got back, he immediately started packing. What are you doing?
In the worst case scenario, I need to protect my mom. So I am gathering my things to go stay over there.
What about me and Hannah?
My mom says it's too noisy with Hannah around. So she told me to leave her here. Anyway, I'm sure you'll be fine.
Do you really think that's okay to say? You don't care what happens to me or Hannah?
Obviously, in times like this, I'm gonna want to protect my mom over you guys. Don't get it twisted.
His words were so straightforward and harsh that I was at a loss for what to say back. While this was happening inside of the house, outside the rain was getting stronger, and there was a flood warning announced. On top of that, because of the heavy rainfall, the river had overflowed, and there was an order for evacuation. The rain was so aggressive that the town was instantly flooded, and we were running out of time to get away before we would be in serious danger. I grabbed my daughter in my hands as I also grabbed the bag I prepared and ran outside. The street around us was heavily congested with cars heading towards the evacuation site. The water was already at my ankles, and if the water levels were to go any higher, the cars would stop running too. Between the painful drops of rain and the commotion outside, my daughter woke up and started crying. Don't worry, Hannah. Your mommy will protect you. No matter what, I knew I couldn't lose my newborn baby to a disaster like this. So I held her as tight as I could when we went towards our car. We need to hurry and get out. Please, put Hannah in the car.
I'm getting the car out now, so move!
As I was holding the baby and my husband was getting in the car, he said something that made me question my own hearing.
Hey, what are you doing trying to get on? I'm going to save my mom, so what are you doing?
What do you mean? There's plenty of space for us to get on too.
If you guys get on, then where am I supposed to put my mom's stuff? It's not going to fit!
Even as we were arguing, the flooding water was getting closer and closer to our house. I was getting desperate and begged my husband, please, even if it's just Hannah, let her on.
My mom is more important! If I get stuck in traffic, I'm gonna be late to pick her up! I don't have time to be entertaining you two!
He jumped in and started the engine. And I couldn't even chase after him as my husband drove off and left us standing in the rain. Until now, I was already fed up with my husband, who was always prioritizing his mother. I realized that my life and my daughter's life had been absolutely nothing to my husband. I was filled with rage, as I felt our lives in danger and felt completely hopeless. I was crying in front of our house when one car drove up and stopped in front of us. Driving it was my father-in-law.
Sarah! Hannah! Thank goodness you're okay! Forget your stuff! Just hurry up and get in!
Sir! The moment I saw my father-in-law's face, I was so relieved that I started crying uncontrollably. Apparently, he had seen the news about the typhoon, and because he was so worried, he came running back on emergency leave for his assignment. When we finally arrived at the evacuation site in the safe location, my father-in-law finally asked why my husband wasn't there. Then, through my tears, explained everything that had happened that day to him. Upon hearing this, my father-in-law was livid towards his son and his wife. I went on to tell him everything they had said and done until then, to which he was mortified.
Sarah, I'm so very sorry for all this. If only I had realized, you wouldn't have had to suffer this much.
That was to divorce my husband. After this incident, the word divorce had been floating in my mind, so it didn't take long for me to accept my father-in-law's suggestion. Right around that time, my husband and my mother-in-law were heading towards the evacuation site on the opposite side of town from us. However, because the area was already flooded, my father-in-law received a message from them that they weren't able to move anywhere because they drove in a flooded area. The car broke down and wasn't moving either, and their lower bodies were completely submerged in water as they were waiting to be rescued. But when my father-in-law heard this, he said that it was their own doing and hung up the phone. After the typhoon, before heading back home, my father-in-law brought me back to their house with him. When we arrived, my husband and my mother-in-law opened the door and innocently welcomed us as if nothing had happened. Honey, you are with Sarah and Hannah after all? I guess you all found each other at the evacuation site? I was so worried about you. Where were you?
Sarah! Hannah! Ever since we got separated during evacuation, I've been looking for you guys this whole time!
Got separated during the evacuation? When I said that, my husband glared at me. I knew he was trying to stop me from saying what really happened, but this was after I had already told my father-in-law everything, so his intense eye contact was meaningless.
Oh, did you think that I don't know what's going on here?
What?
After Michael left Sarah and Hannah for dead, I immediately went to go pick them up, and when I got there, I found Sarah crying in front of the house while holding on to Hannah for dear life, and she told me everything. Anyone who's gonna leave my daughter and my grandchild like that is getting a divorce. Get out of this house! Now!
Divorce? No, wait, honey, please wait! Having the word divorce suddenly thrown onto her, my mother-in-law went into a panic and tried to come up with multiple meaningless excuses. Of course, my mother-in-law was having none of it, and he physically kicked my husband and his wife out of the house. My house was completely flooded in the typhoon, so my father-in-law drove Hannah and me back to my parents' house in the next state. Unable to live in his own house and getting kicked out of his parents' house as well, my husband had nowhere to go and called me multiple times. In the beginning, he was bold and said that he wanted to stay at my family's house for whatever reason. But as soon as I told him my intention of getting a divorce, his attitude changed completely. He must have not expected me to ever say the word divorce, so my husband got scared and tried to apologize over and over again. I had had enough, so I stopped answering their phone calls and decided to start preparing for the divorce. When I told my father-in-law of my decision, he fully supported me. Thanks to that, I was able to receive a settlement fee out of my husband for the emotional abuse. On top of that, due to his father, he was fired from his company. So my husband lost his salary, his house, his assets, and his family all at once. After that, in order to pay child support fees, my ex-husband got a part-time job, and I heard that now, him and his mother are having to work multiple jobs in order to survive in a rundown apartment. In the beginning, the child support fees would come in late, but every time that happened, my father-in-law would make a threatening phone call, and my husband was never to be late on his payments again. I moved back in with my parents, and with their support as well as the settlement fee and child support fees I received in the divorce, I am able to relax and focus all of my time and energy on Hannah. For Hannah as well, instead of living with her father who didn't show any signs of love towards her, there's no doubt that she's happier living with my dad and mom who are head over heels for her. After truly fearing for my life in the disaster, I vowed to protect Hannah for the rest of my life, and I am confident that I will be able to stay strong for her as a single mother.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.